Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing one of my favorite things, and that is creating a TBR. I love creating a TBR. I'm much worse at following through with them, but I love to create one. And today we're going to be doing 25 in 2025. I have lots of goals for this year. I have lots of books I want to read, but my biggest goal for this year is to work on getting my physical TBR to be a lower number. I think it's over 200 books right now, which is crazy. And a couple other things that I want to keep in mind when I'm reading this year is to read more diversely. I did an okay job of that last year, but I could always be doing better. So this TBR is going to be as diverse as I can make it from my physical TBR. And I also want to be pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. So there's a couple of nonfiction on here and more sci-fi than I traditionally read, just because I'm trying to get into more sci-fi. Okay, let's get into it in no particular order. An Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir. This is about a woman who has to go and be a spy, and also a man who is a soldier against his will. I've seen a couple of my mutuals absolutely bawling at the end of the series, and I also want to read Air, but I think that you have to read this series first, so this is a priority for me. I read the Broken Earth trilogy a couple of years ago and I loved it, and then for some reason just have never read any more N.K. Jemisin, even though I have some of her books, so they are going to be on this TBR. I have The City We Became and The World We Make, which is her urban fantasy. I haven't heard great things about this series specifically, but I have it and I want to try it. I also have this omnibus of the Dreamblood duology. I think the Inheritance trilogy is the one that I really want to read by her, but these are the two series that I would like to read, and this one does sound good. Assassins, Priests, Mad Kings, The Goddess of Death, Who Can End the Destruction. That sounds like things I enjoy in a fantasy. And then I need to get into Octavia Butler next year. I've heard so many good things. She is so good at sci-fi, and I'm starting with The Parable of the Sower. Everyone loves this book, and I think I will too. It would have been better if I could have read it in the year that it was set in the future in, but I think 2025 it'll still be applicable. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is a translated book about a group of people at a boarding school, I think. It is on a lot of weird girl book lists, and it's also been recommended to me a couple times based on my weird girl reading taste. I'm very excited about it. It does have pretty mixed reviews on Goodreads, but I think that's just true of any book that is in the category of weird. The Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. I read the Burning Kingdom trilogy by her earlier this year and I loved it. I thought it was so good. I thought it was true enemies to lovers. I don't know if this one is enemies to lovers, but I enjoyed her writing, so I'm hopeful that I will enjoy this as well. A Nobleman's Daughter with Magic in Her Blood, an empire built on the dreams of enslaved gods. That also sounds pretty generic fantasy, but also something that I'll enjoy. I read The Three Body Problem this year and I really enjoyed it, but I definitely needed a break after I read it. It is what I would categorize as hard sci-fi, and I am excited to get back into this. This is about if you could trigger an alien invasion, would you, even if you don't know what's going to happen? And the way that it's written is so intricate and interesting, but also the author is very clearly an engineer, and it's very science heavy. I'm also a little bit nervous because this is a translated series and the second book is not translated by the same person as the first and third books, so I'm hoping there's not any continuity issues here. A Broken Blade by Melissa Blair. This took book talk by storm. It was so shrouded in mystery and I just wasn't really interested in the hype, but apparently it's pretty good. It's also about an assassin, and that is one of my favorite things in a fantasy. My Body is Made of Scars. Some were done to me, but most I did to myself. That sounds kind of like edgy, and sometimes edgy can work for me, but sometimes it doesn't, but I guess we'll see. Gods of Jade and Shadow by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I enjoyed Mexican Gothic, and I also enjoyed Certain Dark Things by her, so I've enjoyed horror and fantasy from her prior. I also tried Seventh Veil of Salome, and I'm just not really interested in a contemporary story 99% of the time, so I don't think that has anything to do with Sylvia Moreno Garcia, and it just has everything to do with my reading taste. But this one sounds really good. It's set in 1920s Mexico in the Jazz Age, and it's about a young woman and a Mayan death god, and they have to embark on a journey. They go on a quest. and I don't think that I've read enough quest stories this year, so 2025 is the year of the quest for literary Mad Max. The Memory Police by Yoko Agawa. This is about the government controlling our memories. For example, one day there are birds, and then the next day there's no birds, and nobody remembers that there were birds. I think that this is definitely just commentary on the government controlling expression and what we're allowed to remember. I'm very excited about this. I know it's a little bit slow, but I'm excited to get into it. In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This is an author that I have been meaning to read for years at this point, and 2025 is going to be my year. This is her memoir. It's told in a very subversive way from what I know, and it is about her abusive relationship with another woman. I think that the cover is beautiful. I think this is going to be really heavy, so I have to make sure that I'm in the right headspace for this, but I am, maybe excited isn't the right word, but I am anxious maybe to read it. The Dangers of Smoking in Bed by Mariana Enriquez. This is a short story collection, and it's about stories in the dangers of smoking in bed pressed into being the unspoken. Fetish, illness, the female body, the darkness of human history with bracing urgency. Written against the backdrop of contemporary Argentina and with a resounding tenderness toward the pain, in fear, and in limbo, this collection is Mariana Enriquez at her most sophisticated and most chilling. I haven't read Mariana Enriquez yet, but it sounds like I'm starting with her best, so I'm excited. The Jasad Heir by Sarah Hashem. The second book in this duology comes out, I believe, in July of 2025, so I am comfortable reading it now. I hate starting an uncompleted series. I'm in the middle of so many, and I don't need to start another uncompleted one. But since I know when the second book is coming out, I'm ready to start it. This is Enemies to Lovers, from what I've heard. An unmissable tale of shattered kingdoms, forbidden magic, and cunning royals unfolds in this Egyptian-inspired epic fantasy debut. I don't think that I've been reading enough Egyptian fantasy either. I feel like when you're a kid, everything is like based on Egyptian culture, and then when you're an adult, it's a very like white Eurocentric fantasy, so I'm very excited to get to this. Maybe we should count how many times I've said I'm excited. This is the nonfiction that I am prioritizing highest next year. Freedom is a Constant Struggle, Ferguson Palestine and the Foundations of a Movement by Angela Y. Davis. I've heard nothing about good things of any of the books by Angela Y. Davis, and I've read that this is where you should start. I'm definitely not as socially conscious as I would like to be, so this is my beginning of that. And it's pretty short, so I think I'll be able to digest it fairly well. Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie. This is the winner of a lot of awards, the Hugo, Nebula, Arthur C. Clarke, Locus, and BSFA awards. So in theory, it should be really good. It's about a soldier on a remote, icy planet, and an act of treachery has ripped away her leadership and all of her resources, and now she's out for vengeance. I love a good revenge story. I read the Bloodsworn Saga this past year and I loved it, and I need to read more John Gwynne. He has a few different series, but the one that I'm going to be prioritizing this year is Malice. This is a 4-book series, and a lot of people seem to love it. It's The Faithful and the Fallen. I think we follow 4 different people, and it kind of sounds similar to the Bloodsworn Saga, but I don't have a problem with that. The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas is about a young trans boy who unexpectedly has to compete in these trials in order to get a spot to help keep the gods at bay. This is giving Percy Jackson to me in the best way, and I am in my YA fantasy renaissance. I am definitely looking for more good YA fantasy that holds up to being an adult, so if you have any recommendations, let me know. Silver Under Nightfall by Rin Chupeco is about poly-vampires found family. Unfortunately, I've heard the next book is really bad in this series, but that you can read this book as a standalone, so that's what I plan on doing. The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez is a standalone fantasy, which I love. I feel like we need more standalone fantasy. I don't need to be in the middle of 30 series. I probably am at this point, but I love a good standalone. 2 warriors shepherd an ancient god across a broken land to end the tyrannical reign of a royal family in this standalone epic fantasy from the author of Vanished Birds. This is also compared to Black Sun and the Broken Earth trilogy. Both of those things I loved, so I have very high hopes for this one. If this is not good, I will be so let down. The Bone Shard Daughter is a completed sapphic fantasy trilogy about bone magic, and I have heard one of the people that I follow on TikTok rave about this over and over again, and it's time that I finally get to it. Again, in my YA renaissance, The Blood Trials by Annie Davenport is a completed duology blending fantasy and science fiction This action-packed debut kicks off a duology of loyalty and rebellion in which a young black woman must survive. This is, again, trials, fantasy, survival, all things that I am looking forward to, I guess, in 2025. This is a book that I've definitely heard mixed reviews about, but also the last book in the trilogy comes out in 2025. So again, I feel comfortable starting a completed trilogy. This is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winters. And I know it was also originally self-published, so very cool for him that he gets to like traditionally published. I think that this is a grim dark fantasy. On the back, it's compared to a lot of series that I've never heard of ever, but it is also blurb by James Islington and S.A. Chakraborty. Both of them, I really love their books, so hopefully that is a good sign. Immortal Dark by Tikas Grima, again, in my YA renaissance. This is fantasy romance, vampires, dark academia, all black cast. I've heard so many good things about this. I've heard it's a little bit spicy for YA, so I know that going into it. And yeah, the sprayed edges did get me. That is a big reason why I purchased it. Bloodmark by Tracy Dion. I thought that the series was being completed in 2025, but apparently it's just the third book in 4 to 5 book series, the Legendborn cycle. I read Legendborn this year and I loved it. I thought it was so good. I'm very excited to see what happens in this book, and I know that Oathbound is huge, so I have my work cut out for me. I definitely want to read this before March because I would like to read Oathbound as soon as it comes out. This is another series that I just have such FOMO about, The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. This is the first book, The Grace of Kings. This is about a war. There are 2 friends that I think become enemies later in the series. And I love some drama, I love some tea, and I love some war, so I'm excited about this one. I'm excited about all of them, that's why they're on my list. I don't know why I keep saying that, sorry. Mistress of Lies by K.M. Enright. I haven't heard great things about this, but it is such a beautiful copy that I have from Illumicrate that I want to check it out before I may unhaul it. This is about blood magic and revenge and treachery, all of the good things that I want in a fantasy. And yeah, if the best part about this book is the pretty cover, so be it. One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. I still have not read Olivia Blake, and I need to. I have like 3 or 4 books by her by now, and I really need to know if she's for me or not before I continue buying her books. Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. This is from when I subscribed to the Bookish Box YA box. I don't know why I did that. I think it was to get an adult box, and I don't even subscribe to that anymore. But I have read that this is true Morley Gray FMC, which is one of my favorite tropes, so I'm willing to give it a try. And 5 Broken Blades by Mai Corland. Again, the sprayed edges got me. They are truly so pretty, and I haven't heard stunning things about this, but the next book does come out this year, and I want to give it a try before I need to know if I need the second set of sprayed edges. Okay, that's it. That's my 25 and 2025. Thank you so much for watching and so much for being here. If you've made it this far, please leave me the wizard emoji, and happy reading in 2025. Bye!